very front.
Okay.
Hey, how are you, Mother? Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
I want to thank everybody for being here for an update on where things stand, especially here in Hemphill County. But before I do, I want to comment on the incredibly tragic and sad news about Bridge Fire Chief Zeb Smith losing his life today while fighting a fire in Hutchinson County. It is always a tragedy to lose any life, but to see one of our chiefs, a first responder, working to battle back against flames and losing his life in the line of duty is something that we never want to see. And I just want to be able to reach out to his family and let his family know how proud and grateful the entire state of Texas is for a person who leaves such a legacy that he was willing to put his own life on the line to save the property of others. And that is what Texas heroism is all about. Today I'm here with County Judge Johnson from Hemphill County, as well as with a lot of officials that you see behind me, but I want to recognize the state senator for this area, Senator Sparks, and the local state representative, Ken King, and thank them for their proactive work to make sure that the needs, the extraordinary needs of this particular area are first identified, and then strategies are being used at the state level to make sure that those needs are being met. The one overall perception gain from meeting with these officials behind me in the room before coming out is something that we often see, especially in this part of the state of Texas. And that is, whenever there is some tragedy like this that arises, you see Texans pulling together. You see neighbor helping neighbor, county helping county. This entire region pulls together, and they are pulling together more strongly, more united than maybe anybody has ever seen. And it makes you proud to be a Texan, to see the way that Texans handle adversity and the way that the adversity that Texans face brings out the best in our fellow Texans. It doesn't gloss over or eliminate the depth of the tragedy that people have experienced, including the loss of life and the total devastation of property. But it is heartwarming to see the way that Texans respond. Tragedy of what's been lost is nothing short of catastrophic. You could see flying over the entire region the massive size of the fires that have just engulfed the entire panhandle. Then as, of course, you're close to ground, you see that what was once homes or other structures or property has been reduced to nothing more than ashes, something that can never be used again whatsoever. And that amplifies the magnitude of the devastation that so many families have suffered across this entire area. We're dealing with an area right here that is the largest area for fire in Texas history. And as I understand it from the judge, about 70% of Hemphill County was burned. 47 families have been displaced. And these families face a life of total uncertainty at this time. This is something where everything in their life has been incinerated, and they are grappling with the immediate consequences of having no place to call home. Because in part of the people in this region reaching out and helping others, there are some people who have immediate homes. Because of the Red Cross is stepping up to provide shelter, at least in the short run. But the fact of the matter is, we as a state and we as a community here in Hemphill County, we all need to make sure that the people who've lost their homes, they're going to have a pathway to restoration, a place where they can live, they can call home. Along those lines, a task force has been created to address those needs with funding going to the First Baptist Church 501c3. This right here is a sign for people to make donations to. And trust me, these people need donations at this time like never before, and we want to make sure donations are getting to a location that's not going to be fraudulent, that's not going to be using up the money, but instead providing the money to those who have lost everything in helping these people recover and get back to a sense of normalcy as quickly as possible. One thing that we found is not just our fellow Texans, but our fellow Americans are always so incredibly generous during these times when their fellow Americans have faced devastation. And let me just say thank you in advance to everybody across the state and across the country who is willing to step up and help out with making a donation at this website location, so that you're going to be able to help these families be able to rebuild as quickly as possible. I want you to know that we also at the state level have the One Star Foundation, where we will be looking to also provide assistance. And I will say in advance that we've already seen an outpouring of support for people across the state and the country. But even with that outpouring of support, there's far more that's going to be needed to help these families who have truly lost absolutely every tangible thing of value in their lives. Along the lines of what is needed, there's also an extraordinary need for hay. There's a lot of cattle in the entire region that have no food. And again, there has been a big outpouring of support. But the hay that has been delivered has already been used for the most part. And the reality is, for not just days, but for months, there's going to be far more hay that is needed. I'm very proud and grateful for our fellow Texans stepping up and helping out, as well as other states that are willing to provide assistance, and farmers and ranchers and donors and supporters across America. But I just want all of them and all of you all to know that there is much more hay that's going to be needed for all the livestock across the entire region. And the more and the quicker that you can provide it, all the better. I mentioned two other things with a caveat. Two other things that are very much needed, and that is fencing materials and cattle cubes. The caveat here, and that is, we don't want a lot of people just funneling in whatever fencing material they may have, because there are certain specifications that have to be met in order to have the type and quality of fencing that's needed for the ranches in this area. But there are ways in which that information can be obtained that NIMCID can provide more information to you about. It's my understanding that here in Hemphill County, Judge, I think there was one loss of life in your county, and we join you in our sorrow for that loss of life. But we do need to underscore that the tireless work of all the firefighters who stepped up and worked around the clock. When you think and realize this is the largest fire in the history of the state of Texas as far as the size is concerned, that because of the remarkable efforts by our firefighters, that they were able to limit the loss of life is remarkable. Now, one reason for that is because what firefighters know, and that is the first thing you seek to do in any fire is to protect life. The second thing you seek to do is to protect property. And they have worked around the clock, and as everyone has told me, the damages that would have been sustained would have been extraordinarily more complicated had it not been for what the firefighters were able to achieve. One story told to me is at the local hospital is another example of people who responded both uniquely, flexibly, and quickly and effectively. Is the local hospital. They had to evacuate 66 patients first to Pampa and then to a different location. That is a daunting task to be able to undertake and to be able to accomplish. And to everybody involved in that hospital, we owe a debt of gratitude for what they were able to achieve, but it demonstrates the type of flexibility and the way that either officials or families are able to respond very quickly in a time of need that achieves a good result. One thing that is needed on an ongoing basis, and that is more information that will provide the state of Texas with the data that we need to have more accurate damage assessments that will help the state of Texas be able to apply for additional federal funding. And that's an ongoing process. that we will continue to work with all of our local communities on. But we really want to express our gratitude to all of the local officials here in Hemphill County as well as across the entire region. But knowing also that as they work, there are 14 state agencies as well as 45 local agencies all working by their sides to assist them as they work their way through recovery of this horrific fire. And I say recovery, I want to be clear about something. The fire's not over yet. And as Chief Kidd and others will explain in more detail, even though progress has been made, it is wrong if anybody thinks the fire is over and they can let down their guard. Because of weather conditions that may arise later on this week, it is essential that everybody in this entire region, everybody in the panhandle, maintain their vigilance, maintain their access to information, especially from your local officials who will know best about the extent to which in your county or in your community, whether or not you have the potential of facing immediate and imminent harm and danger. So just be attuned to the reality that the fire is not yet put out. It's not yet been extinguished. And until it is, and with the weather conditions constantly changing, we all need to maintain vigilance to make sure that nobody else loses their life and that everybody, to the fullest extent possible, can maintain the safety of their property. But to tell you more about the way things are here in Hemphill County, I turn to the Hemphill County Judge, Judge Johnson.
Thank you, Governor. While the Smokehouse Creek fire has changed our landscape, it has not changed who we are. Who we are as a community is a community who shows up for each other, who puts our neighbors' needs before our own. This was demonstrated by our first responders who put themselves in harm's way to save lives and property, and even more incredibly so by those who continued to work, even though they found out that they were among those whose homes had been destroyed. It was demonstrated again when our neighbors began helping neighbors immediately after returning from evacuation. It continues to be demonstrated not only by our wonderful local residents, but by those across the Panhandle and the great state of Texas who continue to show up for us. The Smokehouse Creek fire is now the largest wildfire in Texas history. And while this is not the part of history that any of us wanted to make, what I believe will remain in our hearts is the gratitude that is sustaining us now. Gratitude for every kindness that has been shown, and for what remains, our resolve. Resolve to keep showing up for each other and lifting up our neighbors, because that is who we are in Canadian and Hemphill County. Our hearts break for the family of Cindy Owens, who tragically lost her life as a result of the fire, and for those in our community and across the Panhandle who have lost their homes, property, and livestock. We will be with you throughout the process of rebuilding. You are not alone. We have felt the love and prayers for our community, not just from our home state of Texas, but from across the country. We ask that you continue to lift us up going forward. We will rise from these ashes. I want to express my personal thanks to those who have supported us through this crisis. First of all, our local volunteer fire departments and those in the area who fought the fire with us. Our local law enforcement who worked around the clock, and having set up our emergency operations center at the sheriff's office, I have a renewed respect for what our law enforcement does 24 hours a day. Our county and city crews who showed up and just helped in any way that they could. My emergency management coordinator, Bill Kendall, who is also our airport manager and who is taking care of things at the airport right now. The Texas Department of Public Safety, especially our local troopers, they stayed with us through all of it. They gave us terrific advice and guidance in the decisions that we made. Texas Division of Emergency Management showed up early on Tuesday and began guiding us through the process of emergency management. Without them, things wouldn't have turned out the same. The Texas A&M Forest Service, Texas Task Force 1 Search and Rescue. This organization covered every inch of our county, assessing the damage and making sure that we hadn't lost people that we didn't know about. They actually were able to do that in a 12-hour span. They started at 7 in the morning and they finished about 7 in the evening, and were able to give us a report the next morning. We're extremely grateful. The Texas A&M Veterinary Service, who has been on site from the get-go and continues to help with livestock. We've got some little baby calves that no longer have a mother out at the pens at our rodeo arena, and those veterinary services are taking care of those baby calves, along with beloved family pets that have been injured, and we appreciate their support. The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, especially our local agents. Our local agents have set up a team of volunteers that I believe is like none other. They've also set up the donation points for ag-related materials and as well as non-ag-related materials. And those volunteers have connected with every single family. They have spoken to every single family that lost their home. And our first priority was making sure that those folks had a short-term and then a long-term shelter plan. We couldn't be in the shape that we're in without them. And many other agencies, too many to mention. I'd also like to shout